I never knew my own husband would offer me to his nephew for his entertainment. It was a warm summer evening when everything began to change between us. The sun was setting, casting a soft golden hue over our house. The light filtered through the thin curtains, creating shadows that danced on the walls. I found myself sitting on the couch, absent-mindedly staring into empty space. My thoughts were elsewhere, wandering through the quiet depths of longing and desire I hadn't felt in a long time. It had been a year since I married Daniel, a kind and loving man who always made me feel cherished. Our relationship had been full of respect and mutual affection, but over time, something began to change. The excitement, the passion that once burned brightly between us had grown quieter, dimmer. We still loved each other deeply, but the electricity that once illuminated every touch and every glance had faded. That evening, Daniel came home late from work, a little distant and eager to read. He kissed me on the lips, and I could feel something on his mind. I didn't press him to talk. I trusted him enough to know he would open up when he was ready. Instead, I busied myself preparing dinner, trying to shake off the strange tension that hung in the air. When we sat down to eat, the conversation was light but brief. Daniel seemed preoccupied, his mind elsewhere. Finally, after dinner, he broke the silence with an unexpected proposal. "My nephew Luke is staying with us this weekend," he said casually, though his tone hinted at something else. "I think you'll like him. He's very different, very fun." I raised an eyebrow, slightly confused by the way he emphasized the word fun. Luke was several years younger than Daniel, although I had seen him a few times. I hadn't spent much time alone with him. From what I knew, he was charming, handsome in a youthful way, and had a reputation for being a bit flirty. I wasn't sure what Daniel was implying or where this was going, but curiosity began to stir within me. Later that night, when Luke arrived, the energy in the room shifted instantly. His presence was magnetic, his confidence palpable. He greeted me with a warm hug, his hands lingering on my waist a little longer than expected. His dark, intense eyes locked onto mine, and in that moment, I felt a surge of emotion I hadn't experienced in a long time. As the evening went on, the three of us sat in the living room, chatting and laughing over glasses of wine. Daniel was more relaxed than I had seen him in days. As the conversation flowed, I noticed the subtle ways Luke's attention kept drifting toward me. His playful smiles, his occasional glances, the way he leaned in whenever I spoke. It was as if an undercurrent was forming between us, slow and steady, impossible to ignore. When Daniel excused himself to take a call, the atmosphere between Luke and me shifted again. His eyes were fixed on mine, and the space between us seemed to shrink, even though neither of us had moved. "You look stunning tonight," Luke said softly, his voice low and velvety. I blushed, unsure of how to respond, but the way he looked at me made my heart race. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice betraying the nerves fluttering in my chest. He leaned closer, his face only inches from mine. "Do you ever wonder what it would be like to feel something new, something exciting?" My breath caught. I couldn't deny there was a part of me that longed for the thrill of the unknown, the excitement of something forbidden. But Daniel was just in the other room. Surely this couldn't happen. Yet the way Luke looked at me, the way his words seemed to weave a spell around me, made it hard to think clearly. Before I could respond, Daniel returned to the room. He looked at us with a knowing smile on his lips. "I see you two are getting along," he commented, sitting back down. There was something in his tone, something teasing, almost as if he found the growing tension between us amusing. For a moment, I worried he might have sensed what was happening. But instead, Daniel simply poured himself another glass of wine and leaned back on the couch, completely at ease. Then he looked at me, his warm eyes meeting mine, and said something I never expected. "You know," he began, swirling the wine in his glass, "Luke has always been a good man, loyal, fun, and very capable of making someone feel special." My heart skipped a beat. Was he suggesting what I thought he was? "Luke, why don't you help her relax tonight?" His words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Luke's eyes darkened with understanding, and I felt my breath hitch once more. I looked at Daniel, searching his face for any sign of jealousy or anger, but there was none. Only that same knowing smile, his gaze soft, yet layered with something deeper. Permission, perhaps. Luke didn't hesitate. He moved closer, his fingers brushing against mine, sending a shiver up my arm. I looked back at Daniel, but he gave me a small nod, as if to say, little by little, Luke's hand found my cheek, his touch soft yet firm, and before I realized it, his lips were on mine. The kiss was slow, exploratory, filled with the kind of passion I had missed for so long. His hands gently roamed over my body, teasing and provoking sensations I hadn't felt in ages, leaving us alone, just the three of us, in this strange and intoxicating moment. When we finally pulled apart, I looked back at Daniel. His eyes were on me, filled with approval and something else, satisfaction. He wasn't upset. He wasn't angry. Instead, he seemed to enjoy watching me being cared for, as if this was something he had wanted from the beginning. Luke's hands continued their exploration, his touch becoming bolder, more confident. His fingers traced the curve of my waist, pulling me closer to him. Each touch sent waves of heat through my body, and I found myself leaning in, surrendering to every movement. Luke's kisses grew deeper, more urgent, and I became lost in the sensations. Time seemed to slow, and the boundaries I once thought so firm began to blur. As the night went on, I realized something had also changed within me. I wasn't just enjoying the attention, I was thriving on it. The way Luke made me feel, desired, adored, wanted, awakened a part of me I had buried long ago. And Daniel, he seemed to relish my pleasure, encouraging it, wanting more for me. The hours melted away as Luke and I continued exploring, a slow, burning passion simmering beneath the surface, never rushing, never reaching a peak, but always there, smoldering. Every caress, every glance, every kiss was a promise of more, and we let the night take us wherever it wanted. When the sun finally began to rise, casting a soft pale light through the windows, I found myself wrapped in Luke's arms, Daniel beside us, his hand gently caressing my back. I had never felt so content, so complete. This was more than a night of passion. It was an awakening, a discovery of something new, something thrilling, something I never knew I needed. As I lay there, caught between the warmth of Luke's embrace and Daniel's steady gaze, I realized the night had changed everything. Our relationship had deepened, our love had grown stronger, and the passion we had once lost had been reignited in the most unexpected way. And as I drifted off to sleep, I knew this was only the beginning. As the light of dawn spilled into the room, the intensity of the night lingered in the air, thick with passion and desire. Luke's hand traced slow circles on my skin, igniting a fire within me that hadn't dimmed all night. My body still buzzed with the electricity of his touch, but it was Daniel's steady gaze that grounded me in the moment. His eyes, locked on mine, were filled with pride and approval, as though he were witnessing the culmination of every hidden desire he never knew he had. It was then I realized something had permanently shifted between the three of us. A bond forged in passion, trust, and something deeper than I could comprehend in that moment. As Luke's arm tightened around me and Daniel leaned closer, their combined presence overwhelmed me, filling me with a sense of completeness I had never known before. The anticipation, the hunger for more than just physical satisfaction, stirred deep within me. It was as if the night had opened a door I could never close, and I didn't want to. In that moment, I surrendered completely to them, to the passion, to the undeniable connection we now shared. Whatever came next, I was ready for it, consumed by the intensity that pulsed between us, knowing our story had only just begun.